Open your eyes, listen. The volume of fashion just turned down and you can finally hear the heartbeat. This is Balenciaga, Spring-Summer 2026. Pierpaolo Piccioli's first chapter. Not a shout, not a meme, not a dare. If the last decade trained us to brace for the punchline, answered with a prayer. The room felt quieter because the ambition moved inward, from noise to nuance, from spectacle to sentence, from the wink to the vow. What does this debut mean for the future of the house? Everything, and specifically a recalibration of power. Balenciaga has always been about power. Cristobal sculpted it in silence. Nicholas electrified it with modernity. Demna weaponized it with irony. Piccioli moves that power somewhere else entirely, into grace. The cut is still architecture, but the intention is human. He doesn't ridicule culture, he consoles it. He doesn't ask you to perform luxury, he asks you to feel it. Culturally, this matters because fashion has been living at the edge of exhaustion. We've been overdosed on commentary, on the idea that clothes must come with a punch, a provocation, a screen grab. You can only run on adrenaline for so long. When a culture is tired, sincerity reads as rebellion. That's why this show feels bigger than a collection. It's a correction. The future of Balenciaga under Piccioli proposes an ethic. Emotion is not weakness, clarity is not compromise, and beauty, simple, precise, rigorously made, is a radical act. Psychologically, the pivot is profound. Demna's project taught us to see the fashion system from the outside, to witness the absurdity and the brilliance at the same time. The consumer became critic, the street became stage. Piccioli turns the camera back to the body. Not the idea of a body, not a meme of a body, but the person inside the clothes. His language is couture romanticism. Drape that breathes, volume that protects, rather than shouts. Color that carries memory. At Balenciaga, that romance doesn't melt into prettiness, it sharpens. The lines stay surgical, the silhouettes hold authority, it's tenderness with a backbone. Creatively, the collection rewires codes without pretending amnesia. You feel Cristobal's discipline, the way garments carry their own gravity, the reverence for black and for clean planes that let the cut speak. You feel the house's love of structure, of cloaked shoulders and quiet drama, but filtered through Piccioli's hospitality of spirit. It's not the Guesquière futurism or the Demna meta-satire. It's a third path, classical construction presented with present tense warmth. The result is clothing that doesn't beg for a headline because it expects to be lived in. That is a very Balenciaga demand. This is how couture romanticism begins to redefine the street's language. The street once disrupted couture. Now couture regrounds the street. Proportions stay generous, but the energy changes. Less swagger, more stance. Separates carry ceremony, jackets cut like promises, skirts that move with air under them, day pieces with evening discipline. Expect denim to be treated like a serious fabric, knitwear to become an instrument rather than a filler, and shoes to soften the silhouette without surrendering edge. Accessories will speak low and long, fewer jokes, more heirlooms in the making. For the industry, this is a temperature check. When houses swing back to craft and clarity, it's not conservatism, it's recovery. You can hear it in the way conversations after the show sound. Less did you see, and more did you feel. The market understands this language. Old clients who loved Balenciaga's rigor but drifted from its cynicism will return for the spine and the serenity. New clients, raised on streetwear but hungry for permanence, will arrive for the emotion and stay for the cut. Street culture isn't exiled here, it's ennobled. The hoodie grows up without losing its humility. The tailoring relaxes without forfeiting its authority. That's how a luxury house becomes intergenerational again. And yes, this is also a quiet conversation with the house's ghosts. You can sense Cristobal's black gravity, the ecclesiastical restraint, the armored gentleness. You can feel echoes of the creative directors who followed. Nicholas's forward thrust, Demna's courage to break the frame. Absorbed, not imitated. Homage here is not reenactment. It's aligned to the past to find the right task, to find the right tension for the future. What changes now? Marketing becomes less about scandal and more about stewardship. Product cadence slows just enough for desire to rebuild. Couture thinking seeps into ready-to-wear, simplified patterns that are actually more complex, fittings that prioritize posture and presence, color used as meaning rather than message. Campaigns will look you in the eye again. The brand voice will become legible, fluent in intimacy, decisive in form. Expect casting that centers humanity without using it as a prop. Expect collaborations that make sense for the wardrobe, not just the timeline. Will it all be safe? No. Safety is the absence of risk. Sincerity is a risk. In a world addicted to irony, believing in beauty is dangerous work. But that's the point. This debut doesn't close a chapter. It cleans the lens. It tells the customer, you are not an audience to Balenciaga, you are its reason. It tells the atelier, technique is not an end, it's a love language. It tells the industry, elegance hasn't died, it just stopped shouting. If fashion has a future, and it does, it will belong to those who can make quiet feel inevitable. That's the promise we witnessed. Not fireworks, but fire. Not a new costume, a new conscience. You're watching GTWJ. If this spoke to you, come find us on Instagram at GTWJMag, where we keep the conversation tender, ruthless, and true. Fashion has always moved like a pendulum, from chaos to calm, from provocation to purity. And after years of Balenciaga's theatrical extremes, Pierpaolo Piccioli's debut feels like the inevitable return home. It's not nostalgia, it's a restoration. A reminder that silence can be stronger than noise, and softness can carry more truth than satire ever could. Because what we witnessed in Paris wasn't just a new designer stepping into a legacy, it was a philosophical shift. A collective pause. Fashion has been chasing acceleration for so long that we forgot what stillness looked like. This collection brought it back, not as passivity, but as confidence. It whispered rather than screamed, but its presence filled the room. Under Pierpaolo, Balenciaga reclaims its origin, not in irony, but in integrity. Cristobal Balenciaga was never a man of spectacle. He was a sculptor of emotion through structure. His clothes were precise, spiritual, almost architectural acts of devotion. Pierpaolo understands that lineage not through imitation, but through energy. The silhouettes carry volume, yet they're lighter. They have grace, but not fragility. Every piece moves with purpose, almost like it's breathing again. And this matters deeply because it signals a new rhythm for fashion itself. We're watching the end of the performance era. The era of shock value, of exaggeration for virality is fading. And in its place, something far more intimate is blooming. Pierpaolo's Balenciaga is what happens when the house turns inward, when luxury becomes about feeling rather than spectacle. It's the meeting point of couture and compassion, the kind of beauty that doesn't need to be explained because you just feel it. There's a quiet psychology at play here too, a rebalancing of the ego of fashion. For years, designers have been speaking at us, projecting identity, rebellion, irony. Pierpaolo speaks to us, and that's far more radical. He's inviting us back into the conversation, into belonging, into human connection. It's no longer about outsmarting the system, but healing it from within. His Balenciaga is about repair, about remembering why we fell in love with clothes in the first place. The kind of love that doesn't need attention to exist. It simply is. If Demna's Balenciaga mirrored our collective cynicism, a reflection of a world obsessed with commentary and chaos, Pierpaolo's version reflects our yearning for meaning. His approach feels almost spiritual. It's not the new Balenciaga, it's the necessary Balenciaga, one that acknowledges the fatigue of a culture that's been overstimulated for too long. What makes this transition so fascinating is how he manages to hold contrast without collapsing it. He doesn't erase Demna's legacy, he reframes it. The rawness, the oversized codes, the tension between elegance and distortion, they're still here. But they've matured, they've been softened, elevated, almost redeemed. This is how you evolve a house without betraying its DNA, by listening, by absorbing, by allowing the identity to breathe instead of breaking it. You can see it in the fabrics, the heavy silks, the quiet tailoring, the grounded color palette. There's restraint, but it's not minimalism, it's depth. Every fold, every line carries a message about care, empathy, and longevity. The kind of craftsmanship that asks for time and gives time back to you in return. And that's the future Pierpaolo is building here, a slower, more reflective kind of luxury, one that values grace as much as innovation and empathy as much as excellence. The old Balenciaga customer, the one who admired the house for its precision, for its structure and soul, will find their faith restored. The new generation, those who crave authenticity after years of irony, will finally have a language they can speak. Pierpaolo bridges those worlds. He's reuniting the house's heart with its audience's humanity. There's also something profoundly emotional about seeing a man known for romanticism step into a house known for intellect. It's a union of head and heart, a reconciliation fashion didn't know it needed. He's not rejecting modernity, he's refining it, bringing emotion back into logic and logic back into design. This shift goes beyond Balenciaga. It's part of a larger wave moving through the industry, what we might call the age of emotional couture. Designers are realizing that we no longer want to wear irony. We want to wear identity. We want meaning, intimacy, quiet power, the kind of elegance that doesn't have to prove itself because it already knows who it is. Pierpaolo's Balenciaga reminds us that true luxury doesn't chase relevance, it creates it. And that's why this debut will be remembered, because it didn't fight to impress. It invited you to feel. It asked you to look closer, slower, deeper, to find the poetry between the seams. When fashion is done right, it doesn't just dress the body, it heals the mind. It gives culture a place to rest. That's what this show did. It gave us permission to stop running, to stand still, to remember beauty again. Balenciaga under Pierpaolo Piccioli isn't about a return to old codes or an escape from modernity. It's about synthesis, the fusion of empathy and architecture, warmth and precision, body and soul. It's a quiet revolution, one that will ripple across the entire industry. Because when a house like Balenciaga chooses sincerity over spectacle, it changes everything. And maybe that's the real future of fashion. Not who can shout the loudest, but who can speak the truth the softest. You're watching Girl Talk with Ju. Follow us on Instagram at GTWJMag for more deep dives into the psychology of fashion, beauty and culture, where we celebrate elegance, not noise, and meaning over marketing.